As the currency wars continue to take place, we see country after country attacking what used to be a sound and solid foundation. And we have this new news of Switzerland dropping the euro peg. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Let's get into this here. Back in 2011, Swiss National Bank sets the minimum exchange rate at CHF 120 per euro. This is right from the central bank's own website, and this is what they had to say. The current massive overvaluation, that's their words, what they consider an overvaluation, of the Swiss franc poses an acute threat to the Swiss economy and carries the risk of a deflationary development. They consider that it is overvalued because one currency versus another, it seems to be overvalued. But in fact, it has value. You don't want your currency to have any value. You want to do what all of the other nations are doing, and that is print your money until it becomes confetti. So if we go down further, they essentially said that their currency is too strong and they will not tolerate anything more than 120. So they said here that they will buy foreign currency in unlimited quantities in order to keep it there. And that was back in 2011, and they've been doing so ever since, keeping it stable around the 120 mark. So if we move into present day, we're going to look at this news out of the AP. Switzerland stuns the markets by giving up on currency peg. Bowing to the inevitable, Switzerland has ditched an increasingly expensive policy to limit the export-sapping rise of the Swiss franc, a decision that propelled the currency a whopping 30% higher against the euro within minutes. So obviously, if your currency is going too strong, you are going to have a problem with exports, and that's pretty obvious. But there are other reasons why a strong currency is good. It is not all about the exports. You need to factor in how well the citizens are doing, the well-being there. However, it seems that they have gone ahead with this policy, and you can see how desperate the market is when it can go up 30% higher within minutes. So if we move on, this is actually a good article, but I want to move into a connecting article here. And basically what they said was that, yes, the currency rises, but at the same time, the shares are falling. And that's what you see it doesn't really match up to what happens in the US currently, because you have the US dollar as well as the US stock market doing well simultaneously. And in this case, in Switzerland, it seems to be the opposite. So when you print money at these quantities, when you have interest rates at 0%, you can't really resort to the fundamentals because everything is completely out of whack. I also like to mention that these individuals were able to utilize this 30% increase in their currency in order for them to benefit from it. So it did cause a little bit of a stir in the economy there locally for those who held the currency. So in my book, I talked about currencies as well, and I spoke of 1971. Many of you know this date for obvious reasons, when Nixon pulled the US and effectively the whole world off of the remainder of the gold standard, and that would be the Bretton Woods Agreement. So as I said here, the US dollar was redeemable in gold up until this point, and all other currencies were pegged to the US dollar. And then after that, everything became free-floating and were backed solely by the word of their government. And you can see how really the swings that have been occurring with currencies, with the currency wars that have been taking place as of late, and it really hurts the individual. domestically, it may not be so prominent, but you look at how it has an effect on globalization, and you see the bigger impact. Let's move on right here to how this all makes sense, because I'm talking about this wider impact. And this news out of Reuters: the number of Americans filing new claims for unemployment benefits last week increased to the highest level since early September, but the underlying trend continued to point to a strengthening labor market. So there are 2 points there. I want to cover just both of them. And what I would say is that, first of all, they said that yes, there are more people needing unemployment, but we go to the second point, but things are still strong. Everything is just fine. We need to look at the real statistics, the real economic indicators, and understand that when you have more people than ever on disability, when you have more people than ever on food stamps, and all of those other statistics I always cover, you know that there's a real problem. But of course, they're not going to tell you about it. They just say, and they always continue on that sentence. Notice there's a comma in that sentence so that you close off the thought, thinking that everything is fine. It's all propaganda. The news only exists to have an output of the propaganda. They're all run and controlled by the same conglomerate. Then there's the IMF chief says global economy faces very strong headwinds. This is out of the Wall Street Journal. Emergency lender to nation says the debt and joblessness, weak investment weigh on global growth. These are the things that I have been saying for quite some time. And the joblessness, I believe that she's probably referring to exclusively Europe, but we know the situation in the US is much worse than what they're saying. And they said strong headwinds from weak investment, substantial debt burdens, and high unemployment are preventing a pickup in global economic growth, despite a U.S. recovery. That's right, because the U.S. is doing just fine right now. It's just Europe that's the problem. Surely it's nowhere else affected. But we know the truth. We know how they are able to simply manipulate everything, and they do so very well, in fact. And we're going to go into this article out of the AP. Litany of problems pushes Target into giving up on Canada. So we have to say and look at this exactly. It's not just the US that has a problem right here with consumption. It's also in Canada as well. Target is giving up on its money-losing foray into Canada after just 2 years, closing 133 stores and cutting loose more than 17,000 employees. This makes definite problem for those employed. They're going to need to seek new employment and will be filing for unemployment for the most part for these individuals. So this puts a heavier burden on the people. When their currencies are in trouble, when the real indicators show you that there is trouble, you have a global problem. That's the way it is. You cannot have a single country that is important globally, and it cannot just affect themselves. It stretches beyond their borders. This right here, Seattle mayor wants to allow and regulate 3 new tent cities. This information comes from the Seattle Times, and this is the kind of thing that we need to spread out there, this message. When passengers step off the ferries, homelessness is just about the first thing they see. And you could see right here in that image at the bottom how bad things really are. And this is something that you cannot hide. This goes not just in the US, but we know specifically that many tent cities have been set up there. And this is showing you how bad it really is. And then we have civil unrest that breaks out. When conditions get too bad, when conditions are there where you have a currency that has been devalued significantly, the people will start to create an upheaval and have civil unrest. So then that brings me to my next article. In all, Mr. Soros gave at least $33 million in 1 year to support already established groups that emboldened the grassroots on-the-ground activists in Ferguson, according to the most recent tax filings from his company. So this is what I have to say about this. Now, you may take either side of the Ferguson protests. However, we know that there was mischief and there were some misdeeds. So he's funding this to take place place. And we know specifically what George Soros is up to. And any time that he funds anything, we know that he is up to no good. So this is very concerning to see how he does this. This isn't the first time. He also has done this just only a little while ago, in fact. So he continues to do this kind of thing, supporting these protests, and for better or for worse, we can see that his agenda is definitely one that is criminal. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to become an insider. It's where I give out all my best intel for free, and that is available at themoneygps.com. So just scroll down to the bottom, fill in your email address, and you get occasional emails from me with good, short, concise info.